Good. So therefore we proceed that we are going to begin our PHP, and PHP begins with angle bracket, question mark, and a keyword PHP. PHP ends with a question mark and a closing angle bracket. Everything that comes in between here are PHP codes. So therefore, because we're creating a PHP that is supposed to take care of connection of a web page to the database server, then we need to create some variables here. One of the variables is the server name, which is going to be assigned the word, the name localhost. Why localhost? Because localhost is the name of the server. Next is provide the access credentials, that is security credentials in terms of username and password. And therefore, I proceed to create a variable for username and assign it the default username for this server is root. Next is the password, uh, and default password for this server is nothing, therefore no password. And finally, if the credentials are verified, which database are we going to be connected to? So we have my database is going to be a database called Mahanaim. Good. Having provided those credentials, I proceed to create a statement that submits this data for request of connection to the server. The result of the request is stored in a memory called con, for which the result can be yes or no, true or false. The result is a Boolean. So therefore, the statement for testing connection is MySQL. MySQL what? MySQL connect. It is a function that takes some parameters such as string host or the host, the username, the password, and the name of the database. And therefore, we give these variables here as the parameters: username, password, and my DB. This statement ends with a semicolon. Now, if the result is false in a manner that the connection was not successful, where the exclamation mark means not, then what should happen is that we should get a statement displayed using echo keyword. Echo means display connection not successful. Connection not successful. Good. Otherwise, if it is true, everything will go as per expectations. think they need PHP. Okay, so this job you've seen, you've already saved it as db.php inside the XAMPP server. So we can just confirm by going to the server that is in this PC, local disk C in the XAMPP server and in a public folder called htdocs. Therefore, we can find db.php. It is a PHP source file. So confirm with me that I have not made an error based on the codes I provided yesterday. Is it okay? Because we may have an error that we may spend a lot of time finding. So is everything fine based on what we provided yesterday? You're not sure? So let me verify because I don't want to carry forward with uh, so we have got the server name, the username, password, the database, then the connection statement. Yeah, so I think everything is fine. Good. Now, yes? Yeah. The ones that are on the left are not very much sensitive. They are variable names, and you, as a programmer, you are free to use any name, including your name, even your father's name and your girlfriend's name. Yeah, and your pastor's name. Good. Now, having done that, we have not yet connected the this is just codes for taking care of connectivity, but we have not provided a mechanism in which they can be triggered so that the connectivity can be initiated. And therefore, we need to come up now with a PHP file that now takes care of submission of data to the database, and it is that PHP file that triggers the execution of this db.php. So this means that we are going to have another PHP file. Why? The reason is, someone may ask, why don't we just continue with this db.php and finalize after the connection, of course, proceed with submission of data to the database? The answer is that this file is usually separated from the rest of files because it needs to be referenced to by other files multiple times. Like for instance, a file for submitting a new registration of a customer to the database for the bank, the file for retrieving the information of the customer when he comes to withdraw money, because the teller only needs to key in your national ID number, and then the rest of the details are supposed to be displayed about you on his or her screen. So therefore, this file is being depended on by many other files, and therefore, uh, to avoid duplication of these codes, every time we need to visit the database, whether to give it data or receive data from it, then we just create one file, and then we will be referring to it by one line of code, which says include db.php. And therefore, I proceed to create a PHP file that now takes care of the submission data to the database. Therefore, I will do file, new, And of course, it is a PHP file that begins with uh, question mark PHP and ends with question mark closing angle bracket. It is good to save at this stage. So our PHP, it is in htdocs, and we can give it a name called, can we make it, we're talking about users, so um, can say submit user. Let me give it a little bit big name, submit user. Yeah, submit user, and it is a PHP file. My laptop is heating because the recording software consumes a lot of memory. Okay, so um, when we want to submit this data to the database server, we must first of all refer to db.php to create connection for us. And therefore we say include, include uh, db.php. So what will happen is that when DB, this statement is read by the server, it gives focus back to DB. It actually leaves this file and gives focus to db.php and execute db.php so that to make sure that connection has happened. Once connection has happened, it returns focus to submit user.php. So what is submit user.php doing? Submit user.php needs to pick the values that the user has typed and store them in its memory. The first value that is being picked from this input box, and the value is maybe gems. The only way to pick this value gems is to make sure that this input box has got a unique identity, which I referred yesterday as an attribute name in HTML. And therefore, I go back to HTML and make sure that this input box for first name has a unique identity called maybe called f name. Yes, why you called f name? Now, having given it a unique name as f name, then I can save and come back to submit user and say that I am creating a memory called uh, first name, and this memory is picking a value that is supposed to be posted, that is, and underscore post. This value is supposed to be posted, um, and it is originating from a field called fname again. So this is the name of the field, and this is the memory. But before we do this job, we have to tell the system that if the button is submit, so let me just get the code a little bit here. that if the button is for doing the work of submit, okay, let me just pick it because it is mixing up in my brain. Okay, so that um, if the is set means that the button that has been clicked is set or is supposed to do the job of submitting data to the server, then so all our other codes will come here between the two brackets. So then create a memory called first name that comes from a field called fname. Peter, kunyang'anya simu. Now, the second data that we need to pick is second name and maybe James Karanja. So this name should be picked from an input box that has a unique identity, and therefore I have to go back to HTML and give this input box a unique identity. So input type text, it has a unique identity with an attribute name, and the identity is maybe second name. I save my changes in HTML and come back here and uh, create a memory called second name, and the second name is being picked from an input box called sname. Similarly, I need the age of someone. This person is 20 years old, maybe. For me to pick this value, I should be picking from an input box that has a unique identity, and therefore I have to go to HTML and give a unique identity for this input box of type number, which is supposed to pick age, and give it a name called, um, I can maintain the word age. Um, I am free to maintain the word age so that I don't have lots of confusions. I've already saved with Control S, and therefore I can come here and say that I'm creating a memory called age that will store a value that comes from an input box called age. Good. Having done that, up to this point, we have executed the code for connection, and if the connection is successful, then we pick the values that the user has just typed and store them in memory. And now that they are already in memory, it is now time to be helped by SQL to send this data to the database. And therefore, um, this work still happens within the if statement, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so I proceed to SQL. Okay, so because SQL is a statement to be executed and it is a request, actually it is structured query language. To query is to request, and when you request, there are two outcomes: success or failure, yes or no. And therefore, because there is a result being expected, the result should also be stored in a memory. And therefore, we create a memory called SQL. Now, this memory called SQL is going to store the result of an SQL statement or SQL request to the database server. What is the request? The request is maybe um, insert into um, insert into um, a table called users, and the values. You see, we are now executing this statement, um, um, SQL. So we are now executing the statement insert into the table is called users, and the values are one. Maybe someone's name is James, so James should be put in quotes. The second name is Karanja, and he has an age of 20. Therefore, this is a code we are writing in the server as an administrator because we have the rights. But now this code should be executed by the PHP, but not by you yourself. And therefore, this is the code that insert into users. The values to be inserted are, we don't know the values now. We are not sure if the user is James. So therefore, uh, the value that will be stored in the memory called first name. The value that will be stored in the memory second name after the user has typed his second name. And the value that will be stored in a memory called age after the user has typed his age. So let me just confirm that I have stuck to the syntax, even though I have a problem when it comes. PHP sometimes have problems with double quotes, so I can maintain single quotes um, so that I don't have errors. But once everything has worked, I will bring back the double quotes and see if there is a challenge. Someone can ask, why is it that the memory age is not in quotes? It is because age is a number, so we don't put numbers in quotes. So let me just confirm that I have sticked to the syntax. So the statement is supposed to be enclosed in quotations. The whole statement, starting from insert to age. I don't know if it is including the semicolon. Um, up here. Okay. Okay. So having an assumption that that statement is right, the next thing that we need to do is um, if the connection is successful and the SQL statement has executed successfully, um, then so we are going to say that if if the connection that is in db.php, if you come back to db, you realize that we have con. So if this connection is successful, and the process of submitting this data to the database is successful, and the human being is not able to see the transmission of this data over the network and prove that it has been submitted there. So it is the solely work of PHP to give us hopes that this data has been submitted. And therefore, if all this is successful, then do this for us. Just uh, display on the screen that maybe registration is successful. Registration is successful. Registration is successful. Otherwise, if either connection was not okay, or rather connection was okay, but you did not manage to submit data to the server, then that is the otherwise part of it, which is called else. So else, then echo for us that uh, maybe failed to submit data. Maybe an error occurred, or error maybe 202. So naona sasa ni wewe kama programmer ndo unajua venye error itakuwa displayed. So that now this is where wewe programmer ndo umeandika error 202. Wakati customers ama users wale huko nje, tuseme wewe ni uh, you are the developer for the bank, and then the customers are calling the customer care. You know, the customer care has not done IT. The, the customer care has not done IT. So the customer also has not done IT. So this is their communication. I am not able to withdraw money, and then the customer care has been trying to ask the client what is the response that you are seeing, or rather some clients will proceed to just tell you the only thing I'm seeing is error 202. So that is the feedback that now you, as the technical developer of the bank, you are now going to receive from the customer care that my clients, I have received at least 20 clients calls that are saying that they have received error 202. But because you are the programmer, you know what error 202 means. Error 202 is a code I gave to a circumstance where maybe a withdrawal request is not successful. And therefore, I have to go to the codes that take care of the transactions so that I see if what I can rectify that codes. Because the whole system has got a lot of codes that span even to 3,000 lines of code. Where will you begin to search for the error if people are not able to do transactions? And the boss is at your neck. He's seeing 1 million going the next 5 minutes. So you have to be able to be very good in terms of uh, uh, documenting the errors that the system will be uh, giving out in case of challenges. So I hope up to this point I have sticked to the syntax of this process. And therefore, once everything is successful, we uh, we say MySQL close. That is, you started the process of we started the process with the DB Connect where we were connected to the database. Once everything has happened successfully, there is no need of staying connected to the database, and therefore we need to end or close the connection or terminate the connection. We were just connected because we wanted to do a conversation and submit data to the database or do a transaction. Once that transaction is successful or not successful, close or terminate the connection. because when you don't close or terminate connection, then it can provide a leeway of maybe errors happening, unintentional modification of data. Yeah. So to this point, I expect that everything is fine, that this code is able to communicate with the DB. So DB up to this point has been triggered. So now what has not been triggered is now this uh, sub, submit user has not been triggered. Submit users have triggered db.php, but now submit users has not been triggered to start working whenever the button is pressed. If I save this and come back and refresh here, and say that I'm registering James Carranza 20 and submit, the data is gone. I'm not getting any response that data has been successfully submitted. And of course, if I go back to the um, to the to the server, are you sure you want to leave this page? You haven't, yeah. So if I go back to the server, I am not able to find James Carranza. I still have just Kevin. So this means that this means that this button called submit is, or rather the entire form is still not is still in very independent. It is not connected to the PHP. This form is not connected to the PHP. It has not been given a mechanism to communicate with this submit user.php, which takes care of the submission of the data to the server. So how do we connect the form and the together with the PHP that is supposed to take care of that job? So this is the procedure. We'll come back to the form and tell the form that in case now your data needs to be submitted through the process of clicking the submit button, then an action that should happen. So we are introducing a new term uh, called action. We are introducing an attribute. If you remember very well, by the time we were learning HTML, we just created the form and we didn't have any attribute for the form, other than just going to CSS and style the form and decorate it, give it background color. Those are some of the things we were doing, but we didn't give the form any attribute. So this time round, we are introducing an attribute called action. An attribute called action has the job of dictating and triggering the PHP to start being executed. So the PHP that we want to be executed whenever submit button is clicked is the PHP file called submit user. So I write here that you are going to execute submit user dot php. That is the file to be executed. That is the file to be executed. So form action is equal to submit user dot php. I'm feeling like I've left maybe something out. I think it is something to do with post. Let me just find out how to put it. Where can I trace it? I think I can trace it in one of the forms here. Um, Let me see how this one looks like. I feel like I've left something a little bit. Um, hmm, Not that one exactly. Submit user. Oh, this submit user, the one I'm doing right now. This seems application. Okay, I feel like I've left something. Mhm. Let me get it here. Um, W3. Hmm, Index. And then um, this is Python. This is PHP. And then um, form handling. And then, yeah, I had left something called method. Yeah, I had a feeling that I'm leaving out something. So form action is equals to the name of the PHP file .php, and then we need this called method is equals to post. That is now what is happening to the form. The data that is coming from the form is being posted to the uh, to the to the server. So I need this statement here, this attribute method. The method is to post data to the server. So I think up to this point, I have done everything right. So it is time now maybe to test and let us see. Let us hope that we won't get errors, but in case of we get them, we can always try to rectify. So, refreshing. So I want to submit now this time around James Carranza and click submit. I have got an error that says pass error, syntax error, unexpected token, comma. This comma is available in submit user.php on line 11. So what I do is I go to submit user.php on line 11 and see what this guy is complaining that they have unexpected token. A token is a character, comma, in line 11. So let us see. Submit user, my line 11 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It is complaining about a comma in line 11. Echo registration is successful. I don't see a problem here, or is it here? So let me just check with other files. Um, um, okay, if MySQL, okay, I think I need this. If MySQL query, um, okay, okay, let me try solve it again. So if my SQL underscore query, and it is a method that should be closed here. So if my SQL query, yeah, I should start with from listen. Uh, oh yeah, thank you. If it It is a, yeah, yeah, yeah. So if MySQL query, colon and SQL. So let me save, and I just need to refresh, resubmit the form. This is what the browser is telling me. So I have another fatal error. Now, so these are the things you'll be going through when uh, creating, developing websites for your clients, and therefore you should know how to build, because these are the challenges you'll be facing. I have got a fatal error and caught error and defined constant db in submit user.php. I think this is line 2. Yeah, on line 2. Still in submit user.php, I have an undefined constant db, but I think db was declared, so I don't know why. I have a file called db.php and I'm including db.php. I don't know what mess I've done here, but it's good to always stand guided. I am supposed to include once. I'm supposed to include once. So I'm supposed to, you see it is giving you errors or and telling you where to go, yeah? Are you there? So include once. Okay. You know how to pray? So I want you to pray for me and put me in prayers so that when I refresh this browser, I don't get another error. So here we go. Still, uh, db.php. He. The error is first of all referring to submit user.php on line 2. Line 2 is include once. I hope I have got the good spelling. Is it the spelling for once? Are you sure? Okay. db.php in quotes, yeah? Okay. So quote and quote. Okay, so here we go again. We refresh. The error is gone, but the process is silent. I've not been echoed, so I've been left in silence. Let me refresh again. So I have refreshed. I after if actually the submission to the server has occurred, then it has occurred the first time after the error was removed, and then when I refreshed, maybe again it submitted. There's a high chance that the data has been submitted twice. And therefore, if that is the case, of course, we are going to confirm. If that is the case, then this will lead us to later on study how we can ensure that there is should be no duplicate submission of data to the database. For God created the world and He gave us His only good. So now I am now here in the database side as now as the database admin, and I am refreshing to confirm if data came. But from the look of things, data did not come. And I don't have errors. So what do I do? I don't have errors. So let me click again. Yeah. Uh, Let me come to the table. The table is called users. Sometimes you may, um, I still have Kevin. So, what is my problem? What is my error? Let us follow the procedure again. That that if this button is clicked, then data should be picked from these three input boxes based on their unique identities, which we have just given as first name, F name, S name, and age. And therefore, we need to confirm in submit user that these are the real names we have used. These are the side here as F name, S name, and age. Otherwise, if there could be a disparity between these names here and the ones that are given here, then we could have an error that states this attribute is not found. But we don't have such an error. And therefore, we don't have it out here. Now, have we created the variables? Yes, first name, second name, and age. Now, do we have a challenge with the SQL? Because if the button is able to see submit user.php and submit user.php is able to trigger db.php. If we come back to db.php, we are getting connected to a database called Mahanaim. If the database was not found, if I put an error here in J, add J as an error, meaning that Mahanaim J is not a database existing in this server, and the database is Mahanaim. By the way, are you listening to the impeachment process? this this training is the same as what is going undergoing today in Senate, and you know you have to be very strict to yourself. Now, if the database, if the system is not able to find the database, then this could be the kind of error maybe we could get, that I'm trying to submit this data and the data I'm trying to submit is this, and I click submit, and then I get an error, and this error is a warning that says what? Unknown database. So I have just created the error to certify myself that the system is able to locate the database. You getting that? Yeah. And also to prove my to my consciousness that actually um, submit users is able to communicate with db.php because it is including it once, and therefore I have proven that actually it is able to. So therefore I come back and remove my error. Having proven that this db.php is running successfully in a manner that it is able to locate the database, I have to bring back my focus here and try to have an error in terms of where we are picking the values. So I introduce an error in f name where this name is supposed to be the name of this input box, for which in live scenario should be the name of this input box that is we're picking a value from, and therefore I introduce an error there and see what challenge I could face. So there is everything is going silent. So then this may mean that maybe we have a problem in how we are picking data, because if I come to SQL, then SQL may become num and submit nothing. because um, if these um, objects or input boxes are not able to be located, and in real sense they are not available. There is no input box called edge E or edge E, and the system is remaining silent about it. Then there can be an assumption that we are submitting nothing to the database, and nothing is a value that is acceptable. That nothing is a value that can be stored by the database, and therefore database does not give out an error feedback because actually it has received a value that is nothing, and nothing is a value unless we go to the database and provide a constraint, that is a rule that uh, these fields should not accept nothing. This is now law that we can go to the database administratively as the owner of the database or as the database administrator. Go to the database, go to the structure of the database table and dictate that first name, this time first name can accept angalia but null. Yes, null means nothing. So can it accept null? Yes. This time round, it is saying yes. Can second number be nothing? Yes. Can age be nothing? Yes. So if you submit nothing, the database has nothing to complain about. Really? So therefore, we should now edit or change. So I'm going to change graphically with no code and say that I don't know if it is here, null. So I think it is there. So we uncheck null and save. I wish I could preview the SQL. I think let me do another one and preview how the SQL can look like. So I um, uncheck null. Let me see if this. So I am altering. I think I trained you a little bit on alter. So I am altering the table called users. I am changing second name. Of course, it is Varsa, character set, blah, blah, blah. And I am going to now make it to be not null. Not null means should not accept nothing as a value. Is that okay? So I'm using this mechanism. So let me do it for do the same for edge. Do you remember that story of required? So we are also forcing the database not to accept incomplete record. You get that? Good. So we are forcing the database like the client, when the client is registering, the client has no option of submitting his details without specifying his age. No problem. So maybe having done that, this is going to guide us understand if really this segment is well coded, because if we are picking nothing, then we have a problem in terms of how we are assigning values to the memory. You know, the memory should have something coming from the web page. But this time round, the memory is having nothing. But our expectation is the memory should have something. So, and the memory is not complaining. So we wanted the database maybe to complain to prove our allegation that the memory is being given nothing. So I will save and proceed to do some maybe let me assume and start the process again. So let me say now this is localhost and we're starting from registered.html. So here we are. So we want to submit gems and I click submit and things have gone to silent. So where hapa ni kunoma. So acha to refresh tukuje kwa table and then tuone kama data iko. So still nothing, still nothing. So there's a problem here that we are not being told. So we just have to verify that we are following a correct process of submitting data. So I will maybe refer to the syntax here. So that one, after we have the introduction of PHP, we I think let me do this. Let me have the two here. So that after introduction of PHP, we include once um, db.php. Of course, we have created db.php. Okay, and the syntax is fine. And then if is set and post. So I hope this is the character for and, not and, but the dollar sign. Yeah, yeah. So is it? And it is, yeah, yeah. Because ukiwa hapa ukishift 4 ni hivi ndivyo venye inatokea, but ukishift 4 hii side inatokea hivi. So there's no problem with the character. Yeah. So if I have let me check. So if is set open bracket and underscore post square bracket submit where I know now. Do you think the button has a name? Okay, I am feeling that, but I don't know. Are you sure? It doesn't. The button doesn't have a name. Yeah, button doesn't have a name. So we need to have name to be equal to submit again. So the button type is submit, name is submit. Okay, we just pray that I have solved the error because so I can return this to the way they're supposed to be. I just feel like I should have I think just to be very certain, I hope I've saved everything. Um, Let me uh, begin. In fact, let me change the browser. So the server is on, so the server can be accessed by any browser. So I can do local. So we are now in Google. So I can do localhost. It is localhost underscore, yeah, register. So register dot html. Enter. Good. That's an increased size. Now I want to submit my name. I will not I will not submit my age. And then I click submit button. Oh, so registration is successful. So you can see I was just struggling and I didn't give name attribute to the submit button. I feel like crying. I feel like crying. So, so imagine when we go back to the database, we are going to find our data there. So we need to refresh, and then here we are. If we were in primary, I could have asked you to clap for me. um, so you can see the process is not a joke. The process is hectic, and this is what we refer to as back end, and therefore you're supposed to be paid well. So the boss needs things to be done. The boss does not understand coding. He understands business. If clients are not able to register because the system is not working, the boss is saying losing money. You're not saying losing money because you have salary at the end of the month. So this is the suffering that you are subscribing to when you want to call yourself a web developer. But once you, the main important thing here is one, attend sessions, get guidance, and then do a lot of research because in terms of a lot of reading, so that your brain is gets trained into thinking and yeah, just your brain to be, I don't know if I, your brain to be PHP, your brain to just to be able to synthesize these things and uh, have a direct relationship with them. Yeah. Yes, please. You have a come and talk to us. That is Irakoze. We are very impatient. Yes. Yeah. You also have a class here that's scheduled here. Yeah. AutoCAD. Oh, with Mr. Jeremy. Yeah, you can tell him to come. Yeah. Yeah, bado hajakuja. I, I hope, let me hope hajacheck akaona tuko hapa aka akaona 5 minutes time. 12 minutes time. Oh, so you like coming to class early? And like my students here. And like my students here, I have to come to class early and give them 10 minutes to uh, say yes. So you will be, oh, I'm still recording and with all these things zilisha kitambo. Eh? Where is the recorder?